Okay. Hello, Sarah. How are we?
I am well, nervous and well.
Oh, that's great. You're looking very rubbed up there, considering you live in the Gold Coast, don't you?
I can't believe it. I have had 4 layers on for the last 2 days, and I think for the first time in 2 years, I couldn't take my shoes off at the beach this morning. It was that cold.
Oh, and I'm not being funny, but I'm from the UK, so you just there's no sympathy here. I'm sure there's
Yeah,
no sympathy for any of my friends back in Liverpool because this is like a lovely summer's day back home. So,
Liverpool down south. I'm from Tasmania, so you would think
oh,
that I would be used to this, but I think 2 years it's taken me to thaw out from the Tassie cold, and finally I've acclimatized.
all right. Well, look, thanks for joining. Obviously a mutual friend of ours, Laura, mentioned you to me and said you had a really powerful story. You're a great human being. And I was lucky enough to meet you at the recent Wim Hof
Oh,
breathwork retreat, which was a pretty special weekend. And
really, really special.
yeah. I mean, you know what resonated with me during that was Wim Hof himself. He was like a big
Mm.
child. And I was looking at him thinking this guy would be exactly the same no matter what money he had or anything. I think he's got the success equation for life. He just oozes energy, oozes fun. And for somebody who's obviously so famous, you would never know. He was interacting with everybody. And that was one of the biggest takeaways from me. Obviously, it was great to sit there in 10 minutes of an ice bath and all that and watch you suffer during that 10 minutes of ice bath. But
Suffer, shed, all the things.
I
Honestly,
know,
it was
but
the most amazing weekend.
I know it was great. So obviously we decided we'll catch up and we'll have a bit of a yarn. And as I always say to people, I believe the biggest kind of one of our greatest gifts is being able to share our stories. And you do have an eclectic mix of a story. You've had a pretty topsy turvy existence so far, but you still show up with a smile on your face and you're still trying to grow and move forward. And I think you believe also if you can help anybody with your story, well, that's a powerful thing to do. So thank you for coming on. I really
My
appreciate it.
pleasure.
All
It
right.
really felt aligned. Even the title of the podcast, what you guys are doing in the space, it felt like a good platform to be able to share all of the wares and put it to
Yeah,
good use. If I can save someone some pain, I'm here for it.
exactly. That's it. We all have to go through a bit of pain, but I always say maybe not as painful as what we've gone through, right?
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind, just kind of, I always like to know where you've come from. Little Sarah, starting from when you were a kiddie, what's kind of programmed you to the person you are today, and just hear about those bumps in the road along the way. So if you could maybe
Absolutely.
just give me
So,
a start.
a sweet little innocent girl from Tasmania in the southern part of Australia. I grew up in a little seaside town called Burnie. And yeah, very regular, normal life. I mean, I grew up in housing commission housing. Uh, Figured that I grew up poor by Australian standards. I'd soon later realize as an adult that it wasn't actually that poor by different world standards. But, was always very embarrassed to go into an op shop, all that kind of stuff. Parents divorced very young, and I, from a young age, formed a really tight knit bond with my grandmother. Fractured, fragmented, almost non existent relationship with my father, I guess, in the infancy of my parents' divorce. It felt like we were connected, but I'd later learn that wasn't a thing. So yeah, same sort of struggles, I guess, as everybody else who has been a product of a broken home sort of thing. I left Tasmania when I was 17 to join the military.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so for me that was it was like the triple trifecta. I got to go around the world, I got paid good money, and I got to be a chef, which was my passion.
What pushed you to want to join the military?
I think it was a golden opportunity being from Tassie, being so remote and desolate, and not really having a lot of opportunity in Tasmania. It felt like the golden ticket. And my grandma pushed me in that direction as well. My sort of passion for food was born in her kitchen. And travel, she was a big traveler. Cooking ran in my family. My mum and auntie had a food business. So it was the thing. And I got to travel the world and serve my country and, make Australia proud
Oh,
and sort
well,
of.
that's amazing. So obviously the cooking, the chef has been in your family. You've seen that passion. Again, even that's like the programming of a child. You've been around it, so you've developed this passion
Yeah.
for it because we are just programs that we're kind of a coding of from our parents. So just going back before we get to this. So obviously that was when you get to 17. Your childhood, you mentioned, obviously not a particularly affluent family that you were brought up into. And you talked about a bit of a broken home. How was that? Can we look into that a little bit more when you talk about
Yeah.
your early years? How was that? Was it a happy childhood or was it a bit of a mix?
Well, it's interesting because as we're on this healing journey, I remember different things and I have different opinions now from 42-year-old Sarah. I would say 5-year-old Sarah was a very scared, unsafe, fractured young girl who didn't feel seen, didn't feel heard, or didn't feel safe. And in the midst of the marital Molotov cocktail of divorce and the debauchery that comes along with that, I, from a very young age, witnessed domestic violence. I remember my dad putting a gun to my mum's head
Wow.
during the divorce. And I don't know exactly the sort of series of events, but I do recall that was sort of the final blow where everything fell apart. And my grandmother came and picked us up, and we went to my nan was always my safe space. She was my superhero. She was the calm in the storm that was my parents' relationship and divorce. And she was home. She was warm. Yeah, she was everything that this little scared girl needed to feel safe and to feel seen and to feel supported and heard. So she was my champion and my superhero, which we'll later find out, interestingly enough, like her death was kind of like another catalyst for explosion. But yeah, so she was my safe place. And amidst the divorce and domestic violence, my father and my grandfather were the only examples of a male presence I had in my life. I'd later learn as well, I had my grandfather on my mother's side. I'd later found out that I was actually molested by him as a child, and that would only come out later. So I've got this.
What age when you say you molested as a child?
I think it was around 7 or 8, and that memory was so repressed that it would take me being sexually assaulted as an adult to like flick the switch for my biology to go, and a lot of therapy on the other side of a lot of addiction to regress that memory and to get clear on that happenstance, for lack of a better word. And but on reflection too, I actually thought that grandfather, that he was the apple in the sky. And I used to, not have a lot of affinity for the grandmother that he was married to, and thought that, oh, my superhero grandma and my granddad should get married because they're the nice ones. And now I see, as a child, I detached from that memory and that affection and love and whatever the fuck he was doing, was actually the confusion of having that physiological arousal or touch or love or whatever it is that a young child confuses with warmth and love and safety and security in the process of processing such happenings. It was very distorted. So that was my father was abusive, and then my grandfather was on my dad's side, who was married to my superhero grandmother. He was very firm and ruled with an iron fist. So there was not a lot of love in the maleness of our family. Like, there was not a lot of love being received or being given, and it felt, now on reflection, very passed down and ancestral, hereditary, for lack of a better word.
Wow. So you suppressed that until your later years. Okay. So that was kind of 7 or 8, and obviously difficult for you to relay that, difficult for anybody to hear. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Where from there, what transpired after those years?
So my relationship with my father, it really shaped how I would engage and interact with men and other people. I guess from an early age, my father would say, "Oh, you're my favorite." We'd have split custody. He'd take us on the weekends when it was convenient for him, and he would disappoint us a lot. So he would say one thing and do another. So my expectations became low, and I expected to be disappointed. And when I wasn't, it was like this, like this dopamine hit, that when somebody did do something that they said, I would hinge on that instead of looking at the fact that actually this person has no integrity and I shouldn't probably invest my energy here. So I expected to be disappointed and let down in that space. I'd also see my father cheat on his new partner with his best friend, with her best friend. So as a young child, me and my brother would sit in the back seat of my father's car whilst my dad was inside having sex with his new partner's best friend. And like, what do you do with that? And then the deception that we have to go to their house and we have to sit there and we have to lie, and more deception, more deception. So again, there's no safety, no security, no honesty. And that's forming the lens at which I'm looking at personal relationships and life through, albeit unknowingly. And then also I see my father's new partner and her best friend pretend to be best friends when I know that the best friend has been having sex with my dad. And then they start bullying me. So I get my period at a young, I think we must be about 13 or 14, and I become a woman in the eyes of Mother Nature, and they start picking on me because they could see my sanitary napkin through my pajamas, and it was bulky, obviously, like back in the days when women had to deal with donning a mattress size apparatus to deal with being a woman. So there was already a lack of security, lack of safety, distrust. There was all of this deception going on. So I really didn't have, I was being picked on by my stepmother and her best friend, it was just, now on reflection, and actually it's the first time I've ever really shared that story, that it's all going on, and I'm just a girl at 5, 7, 13. Like, get me the fuck out of here. And so moving on into the military created safety and security and structure, but at the same time created a whole bunch of other problems. But
Wow. So,
yeah,
yeah, thank you. I'm starting to build up a real kind of story. As I say, it's like you're coding, right? You're being programmed
mm,
by your surroundings, and it's very hard for a child when you're not. These things aren't explained to you. How do I process this? You know, and you I would imagine you kept a lot inside. You didn't share it with anybody, and you're just trying to
still do.
find a. Yeah, exactly. And I know you've got a beautiful sense of humor, and I noticed I spoke about it with you when we were away.
Mm,
Wim Hof, you have got your self protection, and you bring humor into to kind of
yes.
protect yourself. And I understand, and I do a bit of that myself, and it's a common trait. And you are very funny. Now, how did how did you find as a child? Were you aware that what you were doing, or at what age did you become aware that you were trying to protect yourself, or was it just kind of
I, I
involuntary?
don't I don't think I was ever aware of it until I started this journey with healing. I amassed huge success. I had great examples of healthy masculine in the military, but at the same time developed very poor coping mechanisms with drugs and alcohol whilst I was in the military. So it's like all of these things are weaving into one another and, unbeknownst to me, creating a Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. So just before you got to the military, then, so around 13, 14, you've been, really kind of affected to who you are, and you're trying to find your way in life as a young woman. How was it in school for you? How did you have peace there? Because it sounds like you're in fight or flight. You're feeling this bullying from
Mm.
the ones who are meant to be caring for you. How was school? Because school can be really difficult for children as well.
Yeah, school was not great. I'm a bit of a chameleon, and I guess there's benefits and drawbacks to that. I have the capacity to blend in, although I don't know where, like to vibe with everybody. And because I was in the pretty girl gang, and the two girls I used to hang out with, they were anorexic. So I developed this ugly duckling syndrome, and I just thought I was fat and hideous, and we were poor. So I'm like fat, hideous, and poor. And then I'm friends with the mean girls and the pretty girls, or the popular group. And so every so often, you would get picked on, and there would be a target for the bullying. And so, I spent many lunch times in the toilets crying because it was my turn to be picked on. And then obviously I didn't want to not be accepted. So I would expel that behavior in different circumstances to whoever was being picked on, unbeknownst, and being aware of the impact that it was having. But I got a boyfriend at 13. So he was 16. He was an older boy. And obviously, we all know what goes on when a 16-year-old boy is dating a 13-year-old girl. So I lost my virginity at a young age. And I think, too, I was with that person for like 3 years, and, like negating the shame there, just a disclaimer, fear of judgment from everyone at home. Uh, but it kind of like paved my way. I felt like obviously that connection with him, and he was, again, a safer space than having to rely on friendship groups, which were, you know, I guess that was another way that I was resilient through high school, is you have a boyfriend and then everybody else had a boyfriend. So there was like four of us, we all had boyfriends together. So I was in the clique as well. And I felt during that period where I had a boyfriend and we were all doing the same things, the bullying got less. And so it wasn't really a thing because I was kind of fitted in. It wasn't an individual anymore. I was part of a partnership, so I was less of a target. But also too, I had a male presence in my life, and even now I look back, that was, toxic. I was young, he was older, he used to do stupid things and to upset me, and it was a really toxic sort of exchange. Like, I'm 13, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, as you say, 13, 16, at that age, that's a big age gap. You're still a child and you're trying to find your way. I can kind of see with what you've been describing to me. You're looking for that safe space. You're looking for that man who's going to give you that kind of protection. And I totally understand. And in those schools days, we all go through those painful things. I behaved like a dickhead when I was younger. I'm very kind of open to that. I share that regularly. And okay, so I just wanted to understand that. I can really see why you're like, fuck it, get me on that plane, get me into the military.
Absolutely.
Um,
It
and
didn't feel like anything was worth staying there for. And my grandma, my biggest champion, my superhero, was like, go for it, do it. And at that stage, no one in the family had left Tasmania.
oh wow, so
So,
well, good on you. You've decided to like something needs to change, and you made a move, which is great. Now you touched on something there just before where you mentioned about you did get some in the military, and I imagine I've got a few close friends. I've had one or two on the podcast who've been in the military,
mm,
and they're good men. They've experienced a lot of shit, and they have their own trauma through the military. Naturally, brings its own, especially if you serve in a war zone. It brings all its own traumas and stuff through. But you mentioned about healthy masculinity there, and that's important because so far, I have obviously in your journey in your life, you've not really experienced any of that. How did that show up in the military for you, and what did that mean to you?
I guess it showed up. The military is very masculine dominant. It is a masculine energy, the military. It's protect, preside, provide. It is the antithesis and essence of masculine. And I felt that through the ranks. I felt the safety and security inside of a corporation or a container or a company that garnered safety. Like, I trusted these people with my life. I went to war with these people. We went and saved lives with people. We protected the country together. So there's this invisible thread of trust that you instantly get and you give. It's kind of like it's garnered through obviously the ranks and our programming, but it's that energy that I could trust this person with my life. I'm going to war with you. So it was a safety and a security that I had not known until that point. But it felt like it opened the lid on one and then closed it on the other. So yeah, I had a couple of great relationships whilst I was in the military, and I guess because military men function from a certain caliber, and just military people, some of the best people I know are still in the military, or I know from the military, because I just know at the core what they value. They value honor, they value trust, they value integrity, and just military people are cut from a different cloth.
No, I love that. You've got discipline and everything that you've got around that, and I've found that with the guys that I know, it is they kind of have to have these qualities to
Mm.
do what you do, and it's obviously going to be a masculine kind of world. We have to. You're going out to fight. You're going out to protect. And how did that make you feel as this child into a woman who'd never experienced this type of caliber of man before? What did that mean to you? Did it? And again, so far it feels like you're just going through this world, not really fully aware. And you weren't fully aware till later in life.
Yeah.
Did you feel this step change? Did it make you feel differently?
I feel like I felt seen and protected, but I also felt really feminine in that. On reflection, it was the first time that I felt pretty. it was the first time that I felt like I was commanding male attention. And it was the first time that I was experiencing a healthy, well, I was only 17, do you remember? But it was the first time that I had engaged with and created a healthy relationship, an intimate relationship. My then partner was in the army, and yeah, he was like, he was something else. He was a great guy. And you know, it's interesting because during cat school and like category training, where we're all recruits and we're doing the things, and we get let out on like day 68 or something, and then you can imagine it honestly, it was just like an orgy. The Like all these young men and all these young women had been like locked up for 6 or 7 weeks, and then we all get like a key to the city, a key to Melbourne, and we all get a weekend off, and we've got all this money. And so, of course, we just book hotel rooms and go shopping and get drunk and have sex with each other. And that was kind of the flow of recruit school, and everyone was sort of getting into each other's business, and it was very sordid and crazy. And you know, I found out what a Lebanese guy was, and all of the things. Like, I didn't even know what a Lebo was at that stage. I know now. And but it was interesting because even just on reflection, that energy where you put women and men in certain situations, and you change the environment or you tweak the conditions a little, it creates space or garners certain exchanges and interactions. And where you put 70 or 80 young testosterone filled, estrogen filled men and women, and you lock them up and you take away all of their civil liberties, and then you let them loose like lab rats. I feel it was like a combination of Big Brother and maths all rolled into one without the commitment.
Well, look, it's exactly the same. You know, we're over in the UK. It's miserable. It's raining, and 2 weeks of the year, when you're 16, 17 till in your 20s, if you're not in a relationship, it's like that release from that boredom and miserable kind of work. It's pissing down. I go out at the weekend. Then you have 2 weeks of freedom, and it's debauchery. You go over to,
Debaucher.
you go to Ibiza, you go to Spain, and everybody's like, "Let's have it." And I would imagine it's the same. So you know, being there, and I think it's almost that rite of passage. You get that out your system when you're younger, some earlier than others.
Yeah.
But as you say, when you get a group of young men, young women, hormoned up, freedom,
Yeah.
it's going to happen.
Freedom. And I think you make a great point. I heard you say something there, then you let loose or get it out of your system. And it's interesting because you actually don't get it out of your system. I learned from the military how to decompress with drugs and alcohol and to connect with drugs and alcohol. And so it was interesting because we think we're getting it out of our system and blowing off steam, but actually it feels like that. But now, knowing what I know it's not that. And I know
True.
that we're just putting something in the way of us being able to connect without needing alcohol's permission to be ourselves or to be sexual or to dance or to do whatever. And it feels like the pressure cooker of the Navy or the situation at hand was so big, and the only avenue or outlet that was supplied to us to be able to decompress or regulate our nervous system was drugs and alcohol and exchanges with each other of a sexual nature.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's like, you know, you're talking about the military there. You're talking about that way, and again, like I believe humanity, we don't get, you know, across society, we aren't told how to dysregulate. We're not told how to release these emotions. You know, how to use inner work, to breathe, breath work,
Yeah.
meditation. That's all
Breath
woo
work.
woo in there. It's go and get tanked up and get that quick win, which will then
Yes.
ultimately give you a bit more of a low. And it's the same from a and usually, you know, for myself, if I can, again, not from a military perspective, but I used to do the partying, whether it be the weekends or whether it be going on holiday, and really give it a nudge, do all of the
Give
same
it a
stuff
nudge.
that you would be doing, But what I was doing is I'm running away from the hole that I have in my life, that I'm not happy, that
Yeah.
I'm not fulfilled. And I go, well, I'm going to bottle all that 50 weeks of the year of shit, or vanilla land. I'm going to pin it all into these 2 weeks, and I'm going to experience everything I can under the sun, and that's going to make it
Mm.
all worthwhile. And really, when you, again, as you look back on your growth, you think, I'm just running away from the.
Yeah.
I'm completely unhappy. I'm not fulfilled. I'm not living my purpose. I'm not living who I should be. And that thing that you perceive to be the thing is not the thing, and it usually
Not
causes
at
more
all the
problems,
thing.
right?
But again, it's more programming as well. It's like we're we grow up in that world that freedom looks a certain way and fun looks a certain way. So the unconscious unbecoming of us as a society starts early, where we're told that these particular things should be used to celebrate, but also we find out later that they're used to commiserate also. It's wild.
No, 100%. And I've said it many times. Drink, drugs, whatever it is. It's that short-term fix to fill a hole in your life, and usually it comes back way worse. And with drinking, I haven't necessarily had. I say it many times. I haven't necessarily had a big problem, but I'm at the point now in my growth journey where I'm thinking, what adds value to my life? And the
Mm,
question I ask, why do even if I go and have 5, 6 drinks a weekend, why do I do that? And usually
yeah.
it's boredom or a thing. It's a program. Well, it's Saturday afternoon, and that's what I should do. And when I question myself, I've said it before, that the drink for me is the times when I'd have my biggest arguments, whether it be with a partner, previous partner, people, because all my inhibitions are gone. I'm clouded. My ego comes through. I can't be patient, and I'm fucking ready to go. And if something pisses me off, I'm all over it, and it's caused my
Ticking
biggest.
time bomb.
Oh, it's caused my biggest problems. And, that's the thing I ask most people. When was your biggest arguments in whatever relationship, friends, whatever? And 99% of people say, when I've been pissed, when I've been drunk,
Yeah.
or something, because it's not you. And people don't,
Drunk or high.
yeah,
Well, I
people don't
guess because
realize.
it's like a pressure cooker. So if you liken it to cooking in a pot, everything is sort of pent up, pent up, pent up. And the alcohol releases that pressure, but it gets like directed in the completely wrong direction. You bleed on people that didn't cut you, and
Yeah,
also and you're not actually really expressing it. You're expressing the frustration that the withholding of those emotions is causing you, but the emotions are still there, and then you just bury them a little bit further each time, and they just rise to a certain level each time we get drunk or high or both, but they never really come out. We never really work through them.
yeah. I
We
think I think sometimes when you do that, you add to it, because then you've got another crock of shit that you've just
Oh,
produced. Oh, right, I'll fucking
absolutely.
shove that one down.
The layer cake of shit is.
Exactly. All right, I'm getting a good flavour there. So, with your in that military, what was your biggest takeaway from your time in the military? What did you learn?
I learned that I now have chronic OCD. My ADHD and OCD are through the roof after being in the military, but as with all dualities and polarities, I really love the meticulousness of how I function with my cleanliness, with the things like that. But then sometimes it goes the other way where I'm just like, completely not giving a
Well,
fuck.
yeah, well, I can vouch for that, because I seen the back of your car, and it was like Tetris, the way you mapped everything out. It looked like you were ready for war at all times with what's in the back of that boot.
Yes, and this is the thing, and it was so funny because Laura actually pulled me up on that. I got really triggered during that because it's a thing for me, right? So because like being in the Navy, you've got all of your things with you all of the time. Like I am ready for war. If you get lost with me in that car, you bet your ass that we're the only ones surviving if it goes black, right? And when I was like, I got so pissed off and triggered. I was like, and she was
When
like,
we were
what
taking
was
the
going on?
piss.
Yeah. And she was like, what was going on for you then? I was like, I go, everybody's always like giving me shit and picking on me and laughing at me about how much stuff I've always got. And I've always got everything I need. And I'm
It's
working.
a great quality. It's a great quality.
It is, but you highlight the fact that it is coming from those military. Are we good?
Yeah, it should be okay. It should connect back.
Yeah.
Let me just check here. Okay, all right. So fucking take two.
Take two.
We were
Change of
just talking
location.
about your OCDs in your car, and we've had to take you to the car. You didn't have to show me again.
I'm tortured.
Okay. Well, look, we always have technical issues, and it's we can duck and dive and adapt. So, thanks for moving to somewhere where we can continue this great conversation. So, yeah, we were talking about the military. We were talking about some of the skills that are given you with your organisation and stuff too. And I remember, taking the piss out of you. But it is a great skill to have. The fact that you are always ready for action and
Always
you
ready for
structure your
action.
life in that way, right?
It's a blessing and a curse. And only recently I've been diagnosed with ADHD, OCD, and garnished with a generous handful of autism.
Oh, a
So
little sprinkle.
a little sprinkle of genius makes the medicine go down.
Uh,
And it's interesting too. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Like, was I called into the military because of that, or did the military garner that and enhance that? And either way, I love it. However, it impacts me mentally. It really does. And I think with most things that I got out of the Navy, the duality of the blessing and the curse is bipolar. But one of the great things that I did get out of the military was that expression and that experience of the healthiest masculine that I had encountered. Not saying that it's fully healthy in the military, but it's certainly the healthiest expression of masculinity that I had experienced. And it really does hold the torch to this day.
Yeah, I love that word. A friend of mine, Jack, brought that into my kind of sphere, healthy masculinity, because I think it's all the words get overused. Even healthy masculinity will be overused by tomorrow. But I just think it describes something that that's what we should shine a light on. And again, I think you alluded to, it might have not been the healthiest, but was healthier than the shit that you had experienced to before. And I think that is the way. And I think something that I'm a massive believer in is, men and women, masculine and feminine, need to kind of work in symbiosis. I really I blossom when I'm around a divine feminine energy. It means a lot to me. I've spoke before. If things are imbalanced in my life, and I've had it before, maybe from a relationship perspective, it just hasn't been the right fit. Right now, I've kind of found that fit, and it makes my life a lot easier. It just kind of it means a lot to me, and I think what we need to get away from is this throwing stones at each other and realize,
Oh,
we need good people around us, and that's both men and women. We do need each other. I don't know what you think.
absolutely. And I think society's gotten it really wrong, and we're at a critical point in humanity and at our evolution and of our journeys where whether you're a woman or a man or a cat or a dog or whatever you identify as, the frequency of love is that which vibrates from within. And it doesn't matter what we say externally or how how life manifests or it constructs, that we are at the essence of our core, at the center, at that infinite intelligence that creates our world. We vibrate on the frequency of love, and love has no gender. Love has no external construct. Love is a frequency and a vibration and a language that each of us humans speak. Our soul speaks the language of love. And
Yeah,
within that,
I think that's so poignant. It's so powerful. It's so true. Because I always talk about, as a human being, we're born as a ball of love, and we get programmed with all the shit which keeps us away from that frequency. There's no, there's no surprise. It's not by accident that when we feel that we're in love, we feel our
oh,
happiest because all the other bullshit goes away, and you're like, oh, this honeymoon period is fantastic, and then the programming creeps in, and then we drift away from our authentic self. It's just
absolutely.
that's when we feel our best, when we're in love with a type of job or we're in flow with people. It's just when we're operating at the highest frequency, right? That's who we are.
Absolutely. And I think the world is in such dysbiosis, and there's this real disconnect uh, with the masculine and the feminine. And when we turn inward and we do the inner work and we understand that we are I am me. I am the source of everything that I create, whether that is my anger or my disappointment or my unhappiness or my happiness and joy. That is all created from what my soul is calibrated to and what that frequency and flow is functioning from within my internal compass, that is my soul. And that permeates out into this external construct of life now, by where we have the masculine and the feminine at war. We as humans are at war within ourselves, and that is spreading out and spilling out into our relationships, whether it's personal, professional, or intimate. We're seeing that disconnect and that dysbiosis not only within our gut. As a health coach and nutritionist and chef, that's my jam. But the soil of one's soul is in dysbiosis, and that is also seeding out and flowing and growing out into life. And we're seeing that show up with the toxic femininity and the toxic masculinity and all any sort of extremist, whether it's masculinity, femininity, Islam, Judaism, Christianity. Extremism by nature is dangerous. And even in nature, you'll see extreme heat, extreme cold. The extremities are what kills. And when nature is in symbiosis, when we are in symbiosis with ourselves, with our souls, when our internal compass, our divine feminine and masculine are in, our internal compass for divine masculine and feminine are in union, in symbiosis, is when we can actually permeate that energy and connect on that level with our male counterparts or female counterparts.
No, again, couldn't agree more. Really well said. I like how you articulated that, and it's almost like it's insanity. If you look at
It's
humanity
craziness.
as humanity as a collective consciousness, as a
Yes,
one all being collective conscious. That's all we are. We're a collective consciousness. You know what I mean? If we all got wiped off the planet today, there's still a humanity collective consciousness that's there,
yeah.
right? And it's insanity what we're doing, and
We're
it's
killing
creative.
ourselves.
It's creative, but again, I've said it before. It's because of where we shine the light, and as a society now, whether it's orchestrated for money or whether we've just got so muddled up. It doesn't matter if it is genuinely a bit more sinister and it's created this way, or we've just fucked it. It doesn't matter which one it is. It is. We just kind of get it all wrong. We're pointing the kind of all the focusing attention to those extremities that you talk about. But the large proportion of humanity isn't in that extremity. But when you point to that, we sit in that fear separation. We can kind of get programmed to it. We're watching it. If we what we consume, we become. As you said, from a nutritionist, what you consume, you become. If you're going to eat 28
Absolutely.
Big Macs and 15 Dominoes in a week, you're going to
You're going
probably
to
become
become a fat
obese.
bastard.
In a nutshell, right? And it's the
Yeah.
same what you consume with your mind, and everybody's. That's why I don't look at the news. And most people who've got an ounce of a brain about them nowadays just don't watch it because they know you're just going to get poisoned. And I think it's so insane what we're doing, and that's why I think there's a rise of awakening, there's a rise of consciousness, there's more people talking like we are now. I couldn't remember
Absolutely.
conversations like this happening only, maybe 6, 7 years ago. It wasn't happening. I wasn't having it. I would have thought these
No,
conversations are fucking
definitely
woo
not.
woo. But now it's like
Absolutely.
it's becoming more and more the norm, and I think we are waking up. And I say it, I think there's a flip of the switch at some point. If the people who are in power, the people who own the media and the governments and all that, if all of a sudden there was a rule to say, right, we're going to put a real focus on that higher frequency stuff, which is going to make humanity feel better. I was watching a program on Netflix with my missus the other day, and I think it was called Quilters, and it was about this. It was about these. It was in prison, and it was like these 10 guys, all done horrendous stuff when they were younger, but they'd be good behaviour. They were allowed to make quilts, and they were making quilts.
Oh, I saw that.
Oh, they were making these
Oh,
quilts for these
these
underprivileged
kids,
and
the
I
foster
think
kids.
like autistic kids or kids with disabilities. And I was watching it, and I ended
Mm,
up just crying with joy at what how beautiful humanity can be. You got these big, scary men who, and you could see a lot of them had done some bad stuff, but they'd we all fuck up, and they'd fucked up to the extremity. But they felt like some of them were really understood, and they really had come at peace and cleansed themselves, were taking full accountability, and the joy that they were given, that they were just working all day, create these things for these human
mm,
beings. And like getting a letter from a child to say thank you so much, it meant so much to me. You're seeing these grown men cry. I'm sitting there going, "Fucking hell, it's
yeah,
windy! It's windy in here." But
yeah,
I was in the highest frequency possible watching that. I was like, oh, I felt so joyous, and I was like,
yeah,
now if this, and that's like, and I was thinking, I wanted it to be a series, but it was a short, like 45-minute show. I'm like,
yeah.
I'd I'd love to binge watch that rather than all this kind of the fucking making of a murderer this and
Well,
fucking
I
scary
think that
movie that.
I think that's the importance of sharing and these conversations, shining a light within and with the darkness and having the power and capacity and strength to share your truth and share your journey is where it starts. When we take the shadows out of the silence or the silence out of the shadows and we share and we have these conversations, we spread the love and we spread the stories that light the fire within others. And I think that is where it starts. The switch has been flicked. The switch has been flicked. Otherwise, you and I would not be having this conversation. And the internet has given us permission and given us the platform to have an audience, a global audience, to say whatever we want and whatever we feel and what are we doing with the opportunity. We're going to run with it.
No, I
We've
love
got
that.
to and we have to.
But
Now is the time.
you're right. It is growing, and I can feel it. I can see it.
Mm.
But I also believe if people genuinely wanted to do it at the top, it could be so much quicker
Oh,
because
absolutely. But that's not
it.
going to happen because they want to keep us fat, sick, and almost dead. Like there's and this is the really good thing to note that with darkness there's light and that the world is a duality and a polarity and you can't have one without the other. I think we've all been down the rabbit hole with our tinfoil hats on and doing the things and those things absolutely exist, but like Abraham Hicks and my good friend Jenny Parker uh, articulates, that what you focus on and what you put your attention in on grows and expands. So when we reverse that and inner engineer that and focus on ourselves and how we can heal ourselves, we heal others in the process of doing that. And it's only when we're our best and brightest and boldest selves for ourselves that we can be that for others. And
Yeah,
there's a bit of a disconnect there within the healing woo woo wellness space, I think, too, that there are a lot of people out there trying to save the world, trying to get famous on the back of wellness, or trying to do the work in the external constructs that is not aligned within. But then there's also some really amazing people out there doing the work, shining the light, sowing the seeds and spreading the love. So I think even when people are not there, we're on our way. Like wherever people are, they're at.
Yeah, yeah.
There's been a massive shift. Like you said, I'm noticing it, the quality of the conversations I have with people, the choices I'm making, the way I'm choosing to spend my weekends, like at Wim Hof, doing breath work and ice baths and purging all of my sadness and fears and tears and connecting with other amazing humans is a very different weekend that I would have even been partaking in 2 years ago, where I would have been getting off my face, numbing the pain, thinking that the world was fucked, and still on the wellness path, but really still intimately connected to the suffering that comes from when we rely on external anything to validate, authenticate, or activate ourselves. When we reach out and into the claws of life, uh, we miss the opportunity to seed our happiness and joy from within, because things can get cut away very easily externally. Uh, but it's only really if it's being magnetized and harnessed and created from within that it's sustainable,
Oh,
because you
yeah.
can't cut off from source. Source is infinite and forever.
Uh, yeah, 100%. You can try and run away from it, like, or
Oh, everywhere you
you,
go, there you are. I learned that the
yeah,
hard way.
yeah. Well, you fuck off.
Yeah,
So, no, you make a really good point there, and I find the conversation that I have a more. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm having this with more people now,
yeah,
um, and I think you're right. The point of it's happening, more and more people are talking about it, and I also think because more people are talking about it, more people are thinking there's a path here, because previously no one knew how to get out of their hole. It was like, or it could be very overwhelming. And even the stuff that we're doing within Good Men, there's a reason why it's simplistic, it's actionable, it's bite sized, it's not too deep, because it gets you moving. Because I would, in the past, I'd be listening to a podcast and it'd be very deep on like a pillar, on like wellness or internal work. And they'd be going so deep. And I go, I like the sound of that, but fuck, that's overwhelming. I haven't even
yeah,
fucking, I don't even breathe, properly.
yeah.
I'm all over the place. I've never meditated. But now I think a lot of people understand that it's more simplistic. There's some basic stuff to get you on the move, and I think a lot more people are getting on the move. It's no kind of, not by chance that breathwork's gone through the roof and everybody's doing
Oh,
breathwork, everybody's doing ice bath. What does that do? Bring you back to yourself. You know what I mean? And I think people used to smoke. I used to smoke and I'd be stressed and go, it was the breath.
yeah, isn't that
You know?
crazy? And I think too, the rituals and the connections that come along with taking drugs or doing alcohol, sorry, doing drugs or drinking or any of those social spheres is one of the biggest connectors of how we bond and how we feel we're healing our problems. I think culturally, I lost my train of thought there.
That's okay. You were on a roll. You picked off fucking everything.
Oh,
But you're
yeah.
right. I think
Uh,
internally we're inherently source. We're inherently connected to ourselves. We're always the majority of people are completely disconnected and clouded. But to your point, I think it's like if it used to be like 5%, I think it's like 20-30% who are on the move. How desperate do you think it's out there at the moment? How quickly do you think we need to all wake up and more people come alive? Because it almost feels like everything's ramping up everywhere, and there's like
yeah.
it's almost
And
like it feels like a run to the finish line of fucking dark and light.
absolutely. And I think too, that you make a great point. Like, there is no finish line, there is no there. There's only here and now. And we never get there. We never get there because we're here. And where is there? I mean, without sounding too woo woo, I think that we start here. We start with this conversation, and then this conversation sparks another and another and another. And it brings me back to the point about our culture, our society, being aware and having these conversations that shine the light in the dark and bring those shadows to the surface is important. And we touched on it before, especially in the men. Healed men heal men, and healing men help healing women, and we all come together in that space. I think culturally as well, I think we touched on this before about, I feel in Australia there is a massive disconnect. The DV is really, really big in this country, and that cultural lens or that indoctrination or the way women and men cohabit or do their thing together in this country, it's wild. And especially with the domestic violence thread, I've seen and experienced men in different cultures in very different ways. And like we just spoke about the military and how the masculine shows up in the military, I've had different experiences within different cultures of how that masculine energy shows up. You know, West African masculinity is a beautiful thing and it's very healed and wholesome and holy. Whereas the masculinity that I experienced whilst in India was toxic as fuck. And I didn't realize, even after, excuse my language, I didn't realize after many decades of traveling and almost being assaulted on 3 separate occasions in India that women are a lower class scum of the earth and not held in any sort of high regard. We shoot over to Australia, women are definitely embraced more, but I know as a culture here, we have got a massive, massive domestic violence problem in this country, and women are dying every day as a result. What is the solution? Men are the solution. Men are our savior. Men are our protectors, our presiders, and our providers. And whilst there's an issue with the value systems and programming that has had certain men behave in certain ways, that is not to say that there is something wrong with men. There's just something wrong with the programming within this dynamic that the solution is at the same time as where people perceive the problem to be is actually where the solution lies, and that's with our men, with our healing men, with embracing men, with supporting men, with being there for men and holding space for men to heal and grow and expand. Men are disadvantaged, and I know I'm going to cop some slack for that, but it is hard to be a man. A man is there to preside and provide and protect, and he does so at the sacrifice of his own whim. He puts his wife first, he puts his children second, he puts himself third, and in that healthy masculine paradigm. And that is one example of how healthy masculine integrates with the divine feminine. And I know that that is not atypical here in Australia, but that is what we're aiming towards. And we can't attain something and fix something and align with something if we're hating on what does exist and we're not focusing on solutions rather than persecuting the persecutors and highlighting the problems. The solution to us becoming into divine union as healthy males and healthy females is to share the load, is to embrace our differences and our equanimity and come together in power to triumph over this problem that is culturally and spiritually eating up at the souls of our men and women. Did that make sense?
Oh, that was powerful.
Mm.
That was beautifully said. It made more than sense. It was very enlightened, very interesting to hear that kind of angle, and yet I really resonate with that. And
It,
masculinity and takes various forms, and we're all bespoke. But what you've just described there, for me, sits very well. It really aligns with how I see myself and how
Yeah.
I'm trying to hold myself, and I don't always get it right. But on my healing journey, as someone who I would, I'm healing. I'm on my
And
way,
we
and
always
I'm
are.
liking to, and I do want to help heal others along the way. I'm not perfect. I'm perfectly imperfect. But what you've described just there really, really landed for me, and it was beautifully said. And I do believe that men are the answer for men's problems. You're right, because
Well,
I'm
they're going to
watching it in
save
this.
us. It's men that are going to save us. And I know all of the feminists out there are going to be jumping on their keyboards going, is this bitch for real? But it breaks my heart when I see the dishonorment or disarmament of men. And because without men being real men, we can't be real women. We just can't. And I know that that's going to tick a few flicks in the boxes, but I've been on the receiving end of domestic violence. I've been on the receiving end of healthy masculine power. I have been on the end of sexual violence. I've been on the end of all flavors of that male expression in all of its essence and flavors, and the highs and the lows and the dark and the night. I can honestly say I don't hate men because of what a man did to me. I understand that hurt men hurt people, hurt women hurt people. And I think we need to step back and come from a place of wholeness and healing, in that, is this expansive or contracting? What do we have to do to come together to create solutions together? Because highlighting the imperfections or the shortcomings of the problem, it doesn't help fix it. It doesn't harmonize everything. It just hinders and harms the objective, which is to come together in love and peace and divine union and spread the love and heal the world. Michael
Sarah, I'm
Jackson
on your
had something
I'm, I'm on your train. I'm on your
like,
train. I'm voting for you. Let's go.
yes. And I just, on
That's
that
it.
note, like, I feel that this toxic feminine, like the toxic feminist movement that's currently infiltrating, and all of the other bullshit that is out there, and call me woo woo or whatever. And I do believe that that is the external forces deliberately sowing the seeds of cynicism and doubt into the minds of our young people and the minds of our women. Is extremism in any form is dangerous, like we said, whether it's Islam, whether it's Christianity or Judaism or the feminists and the masculine. We have to come together, and as women, we need to hold space for our own healing, but also to hold space for the men and give the men credit where it's due. Like, they are here to help us. They are here for a reason, as are we. And just because we're highlighting the reasons for males to be in the space, it doesn't negate or take away the importance of the female role. We've got to stop this competition and come together in
Oh
collaboration. It's driving me
no.
insane.
Yeah, and you and me both, and you've spoken many times about these extremities, and that's what it is. And they say why it's happening or who's doing it. It does feel sinister at times, but just pointing that, whether, because there's a lot of I don't even like using the word toxic because it's being overused, but there's a lot of
Yeah,
wrong messaging coming from certain angles of men, a lot of wrong messaging from women, but there's a lot of beautiful messages out there. Me and
absolutely.
you now talking, me and you now talking. I
Mm.
love the divine feminine. The divine feminine can do so much that I can't do, and I need.
We need
It
each
gives me,
other.
it's incredible. And as humans, we, of course, that's how we've been designed, and it's incredibly insane to think anything but society is creating all this muddle of shit. And I find you talk healed men, heal men. I love that what you've just said, and I'm witnessing it because I can have a conversation with, at my age, I'm a big lump, 6'4", and some of the younger lads, teenagers might look up to me and think, "Oh, he's a big lad," and actually get that respect early before they even
Yeah.
know you, right? And I've had conversation with young guys, and they'll talk to me and they'll say something about, oh yeah, something about women, and they'll just say, now if they're young like I was, and say, oh yeah, I've slept with that girl, or fuck this, that, and the other, and they'll maybe talk about, and then I'll say, hang on a minute, do you think that? And I'll say, do you think that's good? And they go, oh, and I shock them. And then I'll give them, and I'll talk to them. I'll say, well, let's think
Mm.
about this. How would that make you feel? What's this? And and not like giving them any shit, because they're young. I've been there, but just talking to them, and they haven't heard it before. A lot of them haven't heard. They haven't had the opportunity to program themselves like that. And
Yeah.
the healed men who are now coming through, are now being able to share this messaging, so we can get to them. So instead of me being a dickhead until I was in my 20s, even 30s, I might have started earlier on my growth journey. So what would that have? The ripple effect would be more, I wouldn't have affected women. I wouldn't have affected people in my sphere. Do you know?
Yeah.
And I
And
think,
I think now's the chapter though, like hindsight's a beautiful thing, but our parents are not going to be doing the healing. They don't think there's a problem. We're now so technologically advanced and expanded in our consciousness that it wouldn't have been appropriate for us to be on this journey before right now, because the world didn't have room for it. Imagine trying to sell your woo woo. They tried to do that back in the day and they got burnt at the stake. So now
yeah,
it's like the coming of age. It's the coming of this new spiritual movement, and or the coming back to. And I think you make a great point that we have to stop the silence and the shaming, and we have to call people out in public, online, on their bullshit. There's no, oh, don't get involved, don't rock the boat. We all grew up in that era where you didn't say anything. And this is why so many kids were molested, because you don't say anything, like, don't say anything, don't rock the boat, like, shame, shame, shame. Or things happen that didn't really need to happen because there was no safety and security to speak up. Now is the time to speak up
no.
for yourself and for others, because when we speak up, we stop giving the shame permission to rot the story and the soul.
No, it's powerful, beautiful, beautifully said. I could talk about this subject all
Oh,
day,
could
and
we ever?
I really appreciate your kind of angle on it. It's really food for thought for me. So thank you.
My
Um,
pleasure.
all right, yeah. So we're out the military. We come to it because obviously you end up being a chef, and you've done pretty good being a chef, right? What were you a bit semi-famous, being on the TV, being a chef, I believe.
Have you been Googling me?
Uh,
uh,
tell me about it.
yeah, so after I left the military, I traveled the world for After I left the military, I traveled the world for a little bit, explored and got inspired, and started my own catering company in Sydney. So I did that for 10 years and created a lot of success. I was being flown around the world on private jets, cooking for different celebrities, and being flown out to different countries to cook on different super yachts. And it was all very ostentatious and fabulous. And I'd made it in that unconscious success paradigm that says my life's got to look a certain way and I've got to have the money. I had the Mercedes, I got the Louis Vuitton, I got the designer, like all the things. And then that blew up and I lost everything. My grandmother died. On the other side of this domestic violence relationship that was playing out, I was dating a drug dealer in Sydney. Go figure. He was the perfect playground for irresponsibility. And then my grandmother died in the middle of that. And so unhealed
She
trauma.
was your super, and she was your
Yeah,
superhero, right?
she was my superhero. She was everything. And I was just riddled with guilt and with shame. And I just blew it up. Like I was so numb to the grief. I didn't want to feel the pain. I didn't want to feel the pain of that relationship. I didn't want to feel the pain of that business blowing up. I didn't want to feel anything. And so I made real sure that feeling was the last thing I was going to do. And like everything I do in my life, I did it with military precision. So the glow up was just as magnificent as the fuck up, or should I say
Yeah.
vice versa. And I ended up getting arrested a couple of times, not once but twice,
Wow.
because I like to make sure. And I ended up in the Daily Mail, and that was kind of the sort of hinge point that even though I thought I was keeping it together and that I was fooling everybody and I was still very high functioning, I that's like someone comes and puts a spotlight into your life, and then your deepest, darkest, most debaucherous moments are online for the whole world to see, judge, and have an opinion of. So there was no hiding after that.
How did you handle that then? Because obviously, if you were doing all that, you probably still are very clouded and wasn't
I
you
didn't
weren't who
handle
you
it.
are today. How
I just
how
got
did you
more
affect
high.
it?
I just continued to get high. I continued to dress up a lifestyle. I had multiple businesses at this time. So I had my fingers in a few pies and I was making a lot of money. And because money was my benchmark for success and my barometer for success and fun, so I was making money, I was having fun, I was still functioning, very highly functioning. I just didn't deal with it. And I just kept on doing that for years. And then eventually I overdosed. I think I clocked about 6 or 7 overdoses, a couple of resuscitations. Um,
Wow.
and the final straw of that was 3 overdoses in 36 hours across 2 states. And I was like, oh,
You're right. When you do it with military precision. That's pretty special,
babe,
right? You're gonna.
the war was won and the only victim was me.
Yeah.
I was the
Oh wow.
wounded. I was, I was like, white flag, I surrender. But even then, yes, I moved back to Tassie. I forgot I owned a property down there. So I moved into the property and started renovating property as an external to the renovation that I was simultaneously conducting on my inner house called my soul, which, was everywhere you go, there you are. Uh, and that process is lifelong. The healing process now in this moment, fast forward, I am the most sober, most healthy, most healed I've ever been in my entire life. But do I battle with the demons of life and my past and everything every day? Absolutely. I put a smile on my face because it's a trauma response, and I am happy and I do feel the joy, but life is not a filtered image of a highlight reel. Like, life is life, and there's lots of highs and more highs now naturally than ever before, but we're still humans. And I feel, we need to extend ourselves a little bit more compassion, a lot of forgiveness, and yeah, I guess it just comes back to that divine union, as we said. When your inner workings are in dysbiosis, nothing works.
So looking back on everything that you've been through, a lot of kind of obviously you've made a lot of choices. Some maybe
A
poorer than
lot.
others, and also there's been a lot of stuff that's happened to you, which has put you in that space, which has led to you making
Yeah.
those choices before you've come away. Have you managed to come to peace, forgive yourself, forgive others as yet?
I'm in process. Like, I'm definitely at this point, there's a peace and a surrender and a serenity that, had not one of those things been exactly as they were, we would not be on this call. I would not be here, and I would now not have the experience of running that gauntlet and being able to help others. And I see the light in that, because if I can make it out of my life alive and be here in this position and share that with the world, and hopefully detour someone's debaucher so they don't have to go through the deluge of that darkness, it will have all been worth it, because it got really fucking dark. You know, like, I actually shouldn't be here. I could have, should have died. I've been resuscitated 8 times.
How dark did they get for you?
Really dark. Like, I was watching, I've been on this YouTube rabbit hole. And now I don't take drugs or do anything to avoid. It seems to be that digital is now my new drug of choice. And whilst not as toxic and deadly, I have been going down these rabbit holes. And it was a household in America. EMTs were called. It was a child neglect case. And these 2 adults were lying on the floor, no pulse, no nothing. The EMTs came in. They cut off the clothing and they started CPR. And I'd never seen that before, but I know I've been the main character in that movie before. I've been laying on the floor, being resuscitated, having the paddles put on me. The darkest of the darkness I feel, you know, I woke up in St. Vincent's Hospital with no shoes, no pants, no wallet, no belongings, and my Superwoman hoodie cut up the center. And I had no fucking idea where I was, what day it was, which city I was in. I had no idea. And luckily, the dickhead that I was hanging out with kept my phone, because the only thing I did remember after 90 minutes of trying to think was my own phone number. So that, and that was a really rough time. And then that was around the same time that other things in my life were falling apart that we'll be able to unpack later. But it was a Molotov cocktail of just burying trauma, burying pain, avoiding feeling the grief or feeling anything. You know, and funnily enough, I'm in Queensland at the moment, and this year is the first year I felt the cold. And I know I've acclimatized, but I also know there's a spiritual layer to that, that I'm actually feeling all of fucking life right now. I'm feeling it all.
That's a great analogy. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great analogy. Yeah.
And
Okay.
winter's here, and
Look,
oh, sorry.
it's
Oh, yep.
okay. Yeah, it's not really winter. What is it, like 18 degrees or something?
I'm in a scarf.
I know, I know. You look like you go in the snow.
Yeah.
So look, I think that sounds really dark. You know, you've been through a hell of a lot. And again, credit to you. You know, obviously, I was speaking to your friend recently, and again, it's another powerhouse who I'm talking to, and I think that there's lessons here. You touch on, you know, you've got a gift to give to others here through your pain and your darkness,
Mm,
and we all need to go through the pain, but I don't think it should be this hard. And I think because of how muddled we are as humanity, we can learn these lessons easier, quicker. We
mm,
still experience the duality and the pain and the negative stuff or perceived negative stuff. but I think it's too extreme. Yours is too extreme,
Oh,
and it's because of all this fucking programming, right? So
absolutely.
what would your kind of biggest kind of, if you were speaking to, little Sarah or to any women coming through, what would your biggest kind of advice be from all of your kind of shit that you've been through?
Know your worth, know your value, know you are worthy, know you are valued, know you are loved, even if it's only from yourself. But just know that within you and choose wisely. Choose what you put on and in and around yourself, like whether it's people, places, things, products, food, the whole thing. You are who you hang out with. You become your environment. So choose wisely. Be kind.
It's a really good point. We are just a series of choices, right?
We
We're just a
really are.
series of,
But
we're just
but
it's like 0 1, right?
yeah, and the thing about choice is though, I when growing up and even in my early adulthood when I moved to the mainland from the little island of Tassie, I I thought everybody had choice. And yes, we all make choices, but not everybody has choice in their peripheral. We don't always have the experience that we have a choice. And at times, some of us in different chapters are sunken to the fact that we have no choice. And that's okay. But I just think the sharing of the struggles and those choices and talking about our choices paves the way for others to see they do have a choice.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for any women watching this, I would think, just look at what you've achieved. Very successful in business, ups, downs, backwards, sideways, military, abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, but you're still here standing
Self
strong.
abuse.
And some of the things yeah, self abuse. I say that I probably abuse you abuse yourself more
Mm.
than anybody else would
Oh,
have, right? Because you abuse yourself for
absolutely.
years, and then
Years.
you don't make the choice to change. So that's a good point. That's something that resonated with me last week. I was thinking about it. I probably abused myself more than anybody else has abused myself, and I
Mm.
had the choice to do that or not do that. So I would just say that, if there's any women out there, you should, look up to what you've achieved, in this, to get through this, to be standing here. It's not, as you said, it's not about buying bags, it's not about financial success, it's not about buying cars. It's about still being standing. And actually, the way you verbalized and the angle you put on men and women in symbiosis, and you're not filled full of
Mm.
hate for men. It's not all men, and it's same. It's not everything isn't all women. I think how you articulate yourself, what you're trying to do on this growth journey, I think it's pretty inspiring. And I think a lot of people could learn a lot from that, and I hope people do take heed of that. Um, I think what we'll do is we'll kind of bring this to a close in a sec, but I'd probably like to pick up another one with you, because I think there's some other layers here to get into at some point.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
there's only certain things we haven't got into just yet. Um, but I'd just like to thank you so much. I've learned a lot from this, not just from you, but just from your view of things. And there's a few things that really resonate with me, and some stuff I can take away from today, because I'm always learning myself.
Yeah,
So
we never stop.
thank you
And I
so much.
think, yeah, that's the
No,
important in part. It never stops, ever.
no, exactly. So you can go and run back into your house now where your internet's not so
I'm
good.
boiling.
Get the heating on, get the scarf off. And no, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much.
Ian.
And I look forward to the next part.
Appreciate it.